I got a book here that I've had for many decades, many years. The Complete Brothers Grimm's Fairy Tales. My grandmother used to read this story to us youngsters when we were, really young. She knew all these stories by heart. And it's not too long. It's about 5 pages, though, so it might take me about half an hour to read it. I don't know how long. But Little Red Riding Hood. There was once a sweet little girl who had gained the love of everyone, even those who had only seen her once. She had an old grandmother who knew not how to do enough for her. She loved her so much. Once she sent her a little cloak with a red velvet hood, which became her so well that she obtained the name of Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Red Riding Hood, I want you to go and see your grandmother and take her a piece of cake and a bottle of wine." Sounds like my grandmother. She was always drinking wine. And for she is ill and weak, and this will do her good. Make haste and get ready before the weather gets too hot. And go straight on your road while you are out, and behave prettily and modestly, and do not run, for you should fall and break the bottle. And then and then grandmother would have no wine. What is this, really a children's book? And when you pass through the village, do not forget to curtsy and say good morning to everyone who knows you. I will do everything you tell me, mother, said the child as she wished her goodbye and started for her long walk. It was quite half an hour's walk through the wood from the village to grandmother's house, and no sooner had Red Riding Hood entered the woods than she met a wolf, the big bad wolf that we've all heard about. Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked animal he was, and felt not the least afraid of him. "Good day, Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "Good morning, saw," replied the little girl with a curtsy. I don't know what a curtsy is, but "Where are you going so early, Red Riding Hood?" he asked. The wolf, I can't remember if the wolf ate the little girl or ate grandmother or ate them both, or if Grandma killed the wolf and fed it to Little Red Riding Hood. But we'll find out together here. I'm on page 2. Now there's a couple of pictures here. Pretty good pictures. Very old. Hopefully you can see. I can't see what's showing up on the camera there. But, God. To my grandmother, sir, she replied. Mother baked yesterday, and she has sent me with a piece of cake and a bottle of wine to her because she is sick, and it will make her stronger and do her good. Where does your grandmother live, Red Riding Hood? About a half a mile from here through the woods. Her house stands under 3 large oak trees near to the nut hedges. You would easily know it, said Red Riding Hood. The wolf, when he heard this, thought to himself, this little delicate thing would be a sweet morsel for me to eat. Oh, okay, the wolf wants to eat the little girl. Well, sounds like our president nibbling on that little baby's leg yesterday. Remember that? Joe Biden was nibbling on that little baby's leg, not 3 months old. And then he actually sucked the baby's foot. Sucked the toes and then put the whole foot in his mouth. Ooh, he's like the big bad wolf. Anyway, the wolf, when he heard this, thought to himself, this little delicate thing would make a sweet morsel for me at last, and taste nicer than her old grandmother, but she would not satisfy my hunger. I must make a meal of them both. Okay, so the wolf wants to eat the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood. Then he walked quietly on by the side of Red Riding Hood till they came to a part of the wood where a number of flowers grew. See, Red Riding Hood, he said, what pretty flowers are growing here. Would you not like to rest and gather some? And don't you hear how sweetly the birds are singing? You are walking on as steadily as if you were going to school, and it is much more pleasant here in the wood. I think he meant woods. The wood. I think he meant plural woods, because there's probably more than one tree out there in the forest. Then Red Riding Hood looked up and saw the dancing sunbeams shining between the trees, lighting up the beautiful flowers that grew all around her, and she thought, if I were to take my grandmother a fresh nosegay, whatever the heck that is, it would make her so pleased. Oh, it must be a flower. It is early yet, and I have plenty of time. So she went out of her way into the wood to gather flowers. And when she had picked a few, she saw some more beautiful still at a little distance. So she walked on further and further till she was quite deep in the wood. That wolf. Such an evil son of a gun. Meanwhile, the wolf went straight on to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. Who was there? Little Red Riding Hood, replied the wolf, imitating the voice of the child. My grandmother, I still hear my grandmother imitating the voice of the grandmother and the wolf and Little Red Riding Hood. I miss her so much. I love my grandmother. Born 1907, went home to be with Jesus 1992. Lived a full life. Wonderful lady. Mother has sent me with a piece of cake and a bottle of wine for you. Open the damn door, said the wolf. Uh-oh. Okay, only 2 more pages to go, I think. Hang on. Yeah, just 2 more long pages to go and we're done. Lift up the latch and come in, she replied. I am too weak to get up. So the wolf lifted the latch and the door flew open. Then he rushed in, sprang upon the poor old grandmother, and ate her up. Oh my God, this is worse than The Exorcist, and Halloween, and Friday the 13th. Then he shut the door, dressed himself in an old woman's nightgown and nightcap, and laid down on the bed to wait for Red Riding Hood. I remember this part. Not only did my grandma tell this story, but I saw those old Warner Brothers cartoons, which were hilarious. After Red Riding Hood had gathered as many flowers as she could carry, she found her way back quickly to the right path and walked on very fast till she came to her grandmother's house and knocked at the door. Who is there? Said the wolf, trying to imitate the grandmother. His voice was so gruff, however, that Little Red Riding Hood would have been frightened, only she thought her grandmother had a cold. Yeah, that's what Granny sounds like when she's got a cold, like a wolf. So she replied, It's Little Red Riding Hood. Mother sent you a piece of cake and a bottle of wine, you drunk. Lift up the latch and come in, said the wolf. So Red Riding Hood lifted the latch and she went in. When she saw her grandmother, as she thought, lying in bed, she went up to her and drew back the curtains. But she could only see the head, for the wolf had pulled the nightcap as far over his face as he could. Good morning, she said, but there was no answer. Then she got up to the bed and cried out, Oh, grandmother, what great ears you have got. The better to hear you with, my dear, he said. And what great eyes you got. The better to see you with, my dear. And grandmother, what large hands you got. The better to hold you, my dear. But grandmother, what great teeth you have, cried Red Riding Hood, who began to be frightened. The better to eat you, cried the wolf, jumping from the bed, and seizing poor Red Riding Hood, he swallowed her up all at one mouthful. Now as soon as the wolf had satisfied his hunger, he laid himself in the bed and snored so loudly that he could be heard outside. I have that problem myself. Sometimes I snore so loud at night the neighbors come knocking at the door to complain. A hunter who was out with his gun was passing by and thought to himself, how the old woman snores. I must go in and see what is the matter. Then he stepped into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw the wolf lying in it. Oh, you old sinner, said the hunter, have I found you at last? I have been seeking you a long time, Mr. Wolf. He was just going to raise his gun when he missed the old grandmother, and thinking that the wolf might have swallowed her, he remembered she might yet be saved. So he would not shoot, but taking a pair of scissors, cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. Yikes! This is worse than this is worse than Jaws. You ever see that Jaws when the shark was eating everybody and all the blood on the water and stuff? This is worse than Dracula, Frankenstein, The Exorcist, Jaws, and Saw all in one. And this is supposed to be for kids, I guess. By the way, we're almost done. One more page to go. Well, maybe I'll say a few words after the story. Last page. How surprised he was to see the smiling face of Red Riding Hood peep out at the first snip. And as he cut further, she sprang out, exclaiming, "Oh, I have been so frightened. It was dreadfully dark in the wolf's stomach." So she was in the wolf's stomach. The wolf had actually ate her. Then he helped out the old grandmother, and okay, good. It's a happy ending, it sounds like, who was also unhurt and living, but she could scarcely breathe. The wolf awoke too late to save his own life. He sank back on the bed and died, and the hunter had his skin. After this, they all sat down very contentedly and drank the wine. I guess Red Riding Hood drank wine too. Okay, that sounds illegal, and ate the cake which Red Riding Hood had brought, and then the hunter took the little girl safely home, and she thought, "I will never go out of my way to run in the wood again when my mother has forbidden me." So that's the moral of the story. Don't go off the beaten path when your parents say you to stay on the road the right way. Don't take any shortcuts. Last part here. It is related that once upon this, when Little Red Riding Hood was going away to her old grandmother's with some of the nice things she and her mother had made her, the wolf spoke to her and wanted to entice her out of the way. But Red Riding Hood was on her guard and went straight forward without stopping until she came to her grandmother's house. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "I met a wolf who wished me good day, but he looked at me with such wicked eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul. Never forget that." Where was I here? Shoot. Oh yeah, look at "Perhaps he will come here," said the grandmother, "so we will lock the door and keep him out." Sure enough, soon after the wolf came to the door and knocked, crying, "Open the door, grandmother. I am Red Riding Hood, and I have brought you some cake and wine." But all remained silent, and the door was not opened. Then the sly old thief prowled around the house and at last sprang on the roof to wait till Little Red Riding Hood went home in the evening, and he might have seized her in the dark and devoured her. But grandmother knew what was in his mind. Now there stood near the house a large stone trough, and she said to the child, "Red Riding Hood, I cooked a large sausage yesterday. You can empty the water in which it was cooked into the stone trough." Red Riding Hood drew off the water from the copper and emptied it into the trough until it was quite full, and the smell of the sausage reached the wolf's nose. He sniffed and looked down, till at last he stretched his neck out to such a distance that he lost his balance and fell from the roof into the great trough full of water and was drowned. Red Riding Hood went home that evening in happiness and safety, and no one attempted to hurt her on the road. So it's a happy ending for Grandma and Little Red Riding Hood, but it's a sad ending for the wolf who fell from the roof and died, I guess. So that's the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Now, that's the Brothers Grimm version here. I believe it was written about 100 years earlier by Charles Perrault. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but yeah. So it's fun to go back, and I've had this book forever. I got it at the thrift store, and I love these old Grimm's Fairy Tale. I should open up a channel and just read them, on my drinking nights, when I'm drinking wine and stuff. And we'll have a good time reading these stories together, maybe I'll open up another channel that's not under a shadow ban and maybe, you know, we can get a few more people into to hear the stories. But I like also they have pictures and stuff. See the picture there, painting. Well, that's all. I don't want to hold everybody up. God bless, and it's Halloween. I want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Take care now.